queer people belong here. And it's not even a matter of if you can play, it's if you love hockey, then you get to love hockey because you're a person and that's what you like. So I think the more we speak out about it, the more you speak out about it, and hopefully more people get on board with that, the better it will be. And I mean, we're creating our own community, whether they like it or not. There's a lot of us, as seen in this project, and we're not going anywhere, and we're finally speaking out about why we belong here, which I think is unbelievable and very inspiring. My name's Ashley McLellan. I grew up playing hockey, playing competitively, love hockey. I would definitely say hockey was my first love. It's still a big part of my life. Lucky enough that a few years ago, I joined a really amazing beer league in the Stouffville area with some really amazing women of all skill levels, which is, I think, what makes it really fun, sort of getting out of that uber competitive environment and sort of seeing that there's maybe joy in helping somebody else along who, you set them up with a pass or give them a few pointers if they want. So that's how I've been playing the last few years. And I also work for the PWHPA, which is Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. So I'm very privileged that I get to actually work in hockey now, sort of combining my passion of hockey and my communications career.
And that's really exciting. And the PW has been doing some great stuff and really pushing the game forward. So I think it's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How did Ashley get into hockey?
So I got into hockey from a very young age. I was born in North Bay. Literally learned to skate when I was 2 years old on my aunt and uncle's pond on their property. So that's a pretty Canadian story. And actually I was part of the first ever all girls team in North Bay, which kind of, if you look at how far that organization has come, they have teams at all levels, AAA, House League, have had a lot of success with players going on to play university. So it's kind of cool that I was part of that first team when I was 6. It also shows my age, but that's okay. And my family ended up moving when I was 10, moved a couple times, ended up in the Toronto area. And that's where I was finally able to play rep hockey with girls. Because in between North Bay and where we ended up, I played boys for a couple years. And just getting to play competitively with girls was amazing. Played for the Markham Stouffville Stars, ended up winning a provincial championship, won OFSA at Stouffville District Secondary School. So it's just, it's always been a love of mine, whether playing, I've been a huge hockey junkie to watch hockey as well. I was that 10-year-old kid who knew all the stats and things like that. I probably had a better memory back then than I do now. So just always loved pretty much playing or watching hockey at all times. And that was my priority as a teenager for sure.
That's super cool. And it sounds like you've had a really fun and interesting career in the sport.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you love about hockey?
I think what I love about hockey is, which is what I've heard other people say, I'm a very competitive person, probably to a fault, some may say. I was that kid who would cry if we lost in the finals or something like that as a kid. But it's just something that when you're on the ice, no matter what's happening, you're in the moment in that shift. And the team aspect has always been great. Met my best friends, some of my best friends playing hockey. And I just think the playing aspect, to me, that's just joy. Obviously, if you're having a bad game, maybe not in that moment, but so there's that aspect. And then watching it is just, I think it's changed a bit for me. Getting to see more women play. I was, of the group that saw, I would say, the 2002 Team Canada team win was very inspirational. Players like Jana Hefford, Cassie Campbell, Haley Wickenheiser. I did idolize them growing up, and that's amazing. And I think to get to have some sort of impact just from the communication side to try and grow the women's game, it's, like I said, it's a privilege. And so what I love about hockey right now is trying to grow the game in any way possible and see that people who have been left on the outside, there's a seat at the table, and you deserve to be a fan or be a player, or know as much as little as you want about it and still get to enjoy it.
Based off your intersection of identities, how could hockey be better for you? And also, how could it be better for the queer community as a whole?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying that most of my experiences obviously have been as a cis white woman. Um, I am gay. So in women's hockey, being gay, I think is like pretty accepted. There's obviously going to be different people who have different values, but then there's also that aspect of there's that stereotype, which is why I think it took me a long time to sort of, I don't know, come to terms with or even like realize about myself what other people had been saying for years, that I had been that, oh, you definitely are gay just because you play hockey and you dress a certain way. And I never saw anything wrong with it. I just wasn't able to get there organically myself. And so I think the stereotype, of whether it's women's hockey or any women's sport, we need to let people just sort of be themselves. And that's the same with male, men's hockey, that which is why it's so hard on the opposite coin to be this, hyper masculine straight guy. There's that pressure there too, which is why hopefully we can see more people able to be themselves. So I think for me, what could be better in hockey is that aspect, but also in my work at the PWHPA, we've seen constantly just doors slammed. And in terms of women being able to have a, viable career as a hockey player, not necessarily being a millionaire, but just, you don't have to have 2 or 3 jobs. You can go play hockey. And so I think for me, that's how it can be better. And I know that for people who are, people of color, women of color, trans people, various, identities in the queer community, it's even harder for them than it is as me, just as a woman of privilege who is a white woman, cis woman. And so I think there needs to be less gatekeeping from the powers that be in hockey, whether it's executives or other fans who just either assume that you don't know anything because you don't fit into that box of like white guy who grew up playing hockey. um, just like I said, it needs to be less gatekeeping. And I think that there are so many people who would love to be part of it, but they don't feel like they're included. And so for the queer community, there is a place for you, there is a place for us. And if we have to make that space for ourselves, as you're doing, Brock, we're going to do it.
I know too many white dudes who grew up playing hockey, and I can tell you most of them don't have a fucking clue when it comes to the sport. So it's always been ironic to me that they try and gatekeep it when I see their takes, and I'm like, you don't even understand the game. So
Yeah,
not
exactly.
that even if they did, they should be gatekeeping, but it's just an extra layer of humor for me. Knowing where the sport's at, knowing how it is gatekept and all the stuff you spoke on, what keeps you in it?
Um, there's always that aspect of I just love to play hockey, and I think that's different as I've learned. To me, it was all one and the same. And I play hockey and I love watching NHL and I love watching women's hockey, and it's all the same. And that's why I love it because everything is amazing. But as you grow, and I think like into my teenage years, I started to be frustrated with people assuming that because I'm a female hockey player that I either know nothing or I can't play. You go play a pickup game with guys and they just don't pass you the puck until you like prove yourself for a few shifts. And even then they don't really pass it, but that's fine. Um, but what keeps me in it now, like I said, is I do have a lot of hope for where the game can go, specifically the women's game. There is a market for it. The talent is just unbelievable, better than it's ever been. It continues to grow at an amazing rate. Um, all the people who weren't part of it can be part of it. Queer fans, trans people, people of color. So I think that there is a really amazing space and an amazing place that hockey can go. And I'm a small part of it with the PWHPA, but I am a part of it. And so that's what keeps me just that hope that this can be so amazing if the right people put the work into it. And I think the right people are. And we just have to keep knocking on the door, and hopefully we get to where we want to go.
And that's got to be exciting too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, uh, we talked about this before, Brock, but there are some days when going on Twitter is just a nightmare, and it's like everybody's against you and everybody hates you and everybody's doubting you. But that's not really the case, because on the flip side of the coin, there actually are a lot of really amazing people that support you, and maybe it's just, you know, the negative voices seem to to outweigh or carry more weight for some reason because it's hurtful. But you know, even with the PW, we've had some amazing events this year that were on television, on broadcast television, national television, and you know, these women that have trained their whole lives got the platform they deserve. You know, and I think that you have to keep those days in mind when you do have your bad days. That we are making progress. It'll just, you know, take the time and take the work, and we're willing to do it.
Totally, couldn't agree more. What gives you hope for queer people in the sport moving forward?
I just think the amount of voices speaking for queer issues have grown. You know, from the time that I started following you a few years ago on Twitter, that's led me to find other voices. You know, other voices who are fighting for and calling people out when there's something that's not okay. You know, and people can call it cancel culture all they want, but it's accountability. You know, we're holding people accountable now who weren't before, and it's never been okay. You know, don't get me wrong, it's never been okay. It's not all of a sudden, you know, this homophobic or sexist language is all of a sudden people are getting canceled. It's like it's never been okay, but now people have a platform to call others out about it. Um, and so what gives me hope for queer people is the community that I've seen grow a lot, even within the last few years, a lot due in part, you know, to people like you. You look at players like Curtis Gabriel who have spoken out and said, queer people belong here. And it's not even a matter of if you can play, it's if you love hockey, then you get to love hockey because you're a person and that's what you like. So I think the more we speak out about it, the more you speak out about it, and hopefully more people get on board with that, um, the better it will be. And I mean, we're creating our own community, whether they like it or not. There's a lot of us, as seen in this project, and you know, we're not going anywhere, and we're finally speaking out about why we belong here, which I think is unbelievable and very inspiring.
Well, yeah, thank you for those words. You know, what you're doing, what your group's doing at the PW gives me hope. Women, queer women give me hope because they seem to break those barriers first